So pretty interesting, right? You saw how they're just all reading from the same script, right? So journalism is supposed to work. You know, journalists get their information from the public. They're the in-between between the public and the elites, the celebrities. They're supposed to basically keep an eye on them and keep them in check. That's why they're called the fourth estate. It's like a kind of like a checks and balances, right? So they're getting their information from the people, and then the people, you know, whether it's the general public, whether you have somebody that's in a company and they get information, insider information, and then that person becomes a whistleblower and they tell that to the journalist so the journalist can report it. But now what's happening is, for instance, you have journalists that may be getting information from whistleblowers, but because the news outlets that they are working for are controlled by corporations, they are not able to really report the truth anymore. They're being told what to say. So just say, for instance, I work at a, I don't know, manufacturing some food plant, or say I work at a food plant, right? And I find out that there's a chemical in the food and that food is making people sick. And I don't want to lose my job, or I'm afraid maybe I might have my life threatened, but I get some information and the documents and stuff, and I want to tell the journalist. So I take the information to a journalist because I know this journalist is going to report and tell the world what I know and give them the stuff, and then that way I can remain anonymous. That's why you also see journalists and they talk about like that, how they have to protect their sources, because depending on the circumstances, you know, that person's life may be in danger. Or if, you know, the journalist isn't good with protecting their sources, you know, then if there's another whistleblower that wants to come to that journalist, they're not going to trust the journalist if the journalist doesn't protect that source, because they don't feel safe. So then, you know, but say that say the plant that I work for is basically giving the money to all of the news stations. So the journalist wants to report on the story, but then they're told by their higher ups that they can't report on it because, well, that company is actually our sponsor and they give us money and they actually pay your check. So if you report this, it's going to bring this company down and they're going to get mad and they're not going to give us money anymore. But this is actually quite rampant in the whole industry right now. This is what's going on, and this is how the corporations have taken over media, right? Where they kind of have everybody hostage. And not only that, no, journalists aren't doing, they're not doing investigative research. So, you know, they're just basically getting written down. They have people that write for them and tell them what to do. But as a journalist, you're supposed to write your own stuff. And you can read a teleprompter if you put what you wrote in the teleprompter, and that's not, you know, because maybe you don't have time to memorize it, that's fine. But it's just looking at that video, you can see that all over the world, all over the country, they're being told to say the same thing. It strikes you as kind of odd, doesn't it? It should. All right, more bad news, you guys, but it gets better. It gets better. It's a little bit dire, but it gets better. Okay, technology addiction. Not only do movies and television have the potential to brainwash you, they also have physical effects on human beings.
The longer a person watches television, the more easily the brain slips into alpha level, a slow, steady brainwave pattern in which the mind is in its most receptive mode. Images and suggestions are implanted directly into the mind without viewer participation. An effective hypnosis is induced, and the viewer surrenders to the unending television image stream. Images of television violence stimulate the fight-or-flight instinct. But since it would be absurd to react to television violence, the viewer suppresses the emotion. Viewers are drawn back and forth on cycles of impulse and suppression. When the set goes off, this stored up energy bursts forth in frantic behavior commonly associated with childhood hyperactivity. Television imagery is jammed together in a steady stream of information, fracturing your attention while condensing and accelerating time. These events would not happen in ordinary life. They are technical alterations only possible within the moving image media. Living in the rapid world of television imagery, ordinary life is dull by comparison, and often far too slow. People who immersed in the surrogate reality of television life deal on a daily basis with a reality totally unlike any that has preceded it. The image stream is a steady, mixed-up stream of real, unreal, and semi-real events. All of these events end up merging with each other and becoming just another set of stored imagery that have all similar reality values.
So the answer is don't watch movies, don't watch TV, right? The internet has been a great tool to get around hearing one point of view. However, is it really good for you? So the good thing about the advent of the internet is the fact that, you know, when you have TV, then people had different sources of information, but I mean, only a few sources of information, but now with social media, it's great because now, I mean, even you can be a source of information, right? You can take your phone and you can, you know, if you're at an event that happened and the news report is reporting and saying one thing and they're not telling the truth, well, you have your camera and you have a phone and you can get a social media account and you can upload that video and show another perspective. And then many other people that were there have different perspectives, and they can upload that perspective too. But the thing now, which is an issue, the tech companies have so much power, they're trying to squash that because they don't like that, because they're losing control, right? These same people that we've talked about throughout the module, they also own and have hands in the tech companies and the media. So they don't like losing control of the narrative. So now they're trying to censor, right? Not only that, not just censor, but they're trying to control people's thought processes. So we're going to look at a few testimonies of people that used to work at Facebook.
When Facebook was getting going, I had these people who would come up to me and they would say, you know, I'm not on social media. And I would say, okay, you know, you will be. And then they would say, no, I value my real life interactions. I value the moment, I value presence, and I value intimacy. And I would say, well, you're a conscientious objector, that's okay. You don't have to participate, but you know, we'll get you eventually. and like, I don't know if I really understood the consequences of what I was saying. Because the unintended consequences of a network when it grows to 1 billion or 2 billion people, and it literally changes your relationship with society, with each other, with you know, it probably interferes with productivity in weird ways. God only knows what it's doing to our children's brains. You know, if the thought process that went into building these applications, Facebook being the first of them to really understand it, that thought process was all about how do we consume as much of your time and conscious attention as possible. And that means that we need to sort of give you a little dopamine hit every once in a while because someone liked or commented on a photo or a post or whatever. And that's going to get you to contribute more content, and that's going to get you, you know, more likes and comments. I mean, it's a social validation feedback loop that it's like it's exactly the kind of thing that a hacker like myself would come up with, because you're exploiting a vulnerability in human psychology. And I think that the inventors, creators, you know, and it's me, it's Mark, it's Kevin Systrom at Instagram, it's all of these people, understood this consciously, and we did it anyway.
That culture is missing here. So part of what we're trying to do to achieve those goals is like take really big, audacious points of view on the world and then train ourselves to be patient. And it's really, really hard. The entire society is set up to not be patient anymore.
And I'm hearing also a conflict with this like fail fast and learn mentality where if you're taking a deep and big bet, like you want it to be the right one, how do you know when that's true?
I think that fail fast approach works in consumer internet businesses, but I don't think it works for anything that really matters. Basically. Consumer internet businesses are about exploiting psychology. And that is one where you want to fail fast because, you know, people are unpredictable, and so we want to psychologically figure out how to manipulate you as fast as possible and then give you back that dopamine hit. We did that brilliantly at Facebook. Instagram has done it. WhatsApp has done it. You know, Snapchat has done it. Twitter has done it. So there are great examples. WeChat is doing it. There are great examples of failing fast is the right path to exploiting psychology of mass populations of people.
I want to bring us back to the point that you were making about exploiting consumer behavior in a consumer internet business. You said that this is a time for soul searching in social media businesses, and you were part of building the largest one. What soul searching are you doing right now on that?
I feel tremendous guilt. I think we all knew in the back of our minds, even though we feigned this whole line of like, there probably aren't any really bad unintended consequences. I think in the back, deep, deep recesses of our minds, we kind of knew something bad could happen. But I think the way we defined it was not like this. It literally is a point now where I think we have created tools that are ripping apart the social fabric of how society works. That is truly where we are. And I would encourage all of you, as the future leaders of the world, to really internalize how important this is. If you feed the beast, that beast will destroy you. If you push back on it, we have a chance to control it and rein it in. And it is a point in time where people need to hard break from some of these tools and the things that you rely on. The short-term dopamine-driven feedback loops that we have created are destroying how society works. No civil discourse, no cooperation, misinformation, mistruth. And it's not an American problem. This is not about Russian ads. This is a global problem. So we're in a really bad state of affairs right now, in my opinion. It is eroding the core foundations of how people behave by and between each other. And I don't have a good solution. You know, my solution is I just don't use these tools anymore. I haven't for years. It's created huge tension with my friends, huge tensions in my social circles. If you look at, like, you know, my Facebook feed, I've posted maybe 2 times in 7 years, 3 times, 5 times. Like, it's less than 10. And it's weird. I guess I kind of just innately didn't want to get programmed. And so I just tuned it out. But I didn't confront it. And now to see what's happening, it really bums me out. Like, think about, like, there were these examples where there was a hoax in WhatsApp where in some like village in India, people were like afraid that their kids were going to get kidnapped, etc. And then there were these lynchings that happened as a result, where people were like vigilante running around. They think they found the person, and I mean, seriously? Like, that's what we're dealing with. You know, imagine like when you take that to the extreme, where, you know, bad actors can now manipulate large swaths of people to do anything you want. It's a really, really bad state of affairs. And we compound the problem, right? We curate our lives around this perceived sense of perfection because we get rewarded in these short-term signals, hearts, likes, thumbs up, and we conflate that with value and we conflate it with truth. And instead what it really is fake, brittle popularity that's short-term and that leaves you even more, and admit it, vacant and empty before you did it. Because then it forces you into this vicious cycle where you're like, what's the next thing I need to do now? Because I need it back. Think about that compounded by 2 billion people. And then think about how people react then to the perceptions of others. It's really bad. It's really, really bad.
It sounds like you're taking deep personal responsibility also in being a part of it.
I kind of, look, I did a great job there, and I think that business overwhelmingly does positive good in the world. Where I have decided to spend my time is to take the capital that they rewarded me with and now focus on the structural changes that I can control. I can't control that. I can control my decisions, which is I don't use this shit. I can control my kids' decisions, which is they're not allowed to use this shit. And then I can go focus on diabetes and education and climate change. And that's what I can do. But everybody else has to soul search a little bit more about what you're willing to do, because your behaviors, you don't realize it, but you are being programmed. It was unintentional, but now you got to decide how much you're willing to give up, how much of your intellectual independence. And don't think, oh yeah, not me, I'm fucking genius, I'm at Stanford. You're probably the most likely to fucking fall for it. Because you were fucking checkboxing your whole goddamn life. No offense, guys.
None taken.
Slow and steady against hard problems. Start by turning off your social apps and giving your brain a break. Because then you will at least be a little bit more motivated to not be motivated by what everybody else fucking thinks about you. Do you know what I'm saying? It's hard. Think about how all this stuff plays together. How does trying to get, posting your fucking waffles online relate to me starting a business and accumulating capital? This is wiring your brain for super fast feedback. It's the same brain you're using to build a company. Don't think they're not the same. Do you know what I'm saying? No? Yes? No? Yes! Yes, right? You have one brain. So you're training your brain here, whether you think it or not, whether you know it or not, whether you acknowledge it or not. Acknowledge that these things where you're spending hours a day are rewiring your psychology and physiology in a way that now you have to use to go and figure out how to be productive in the commercial world. So if you don't change this, you are going to get the same behaviors over here. Change this. There's a reason why Steve Jobs was like anti-social media. I am telling you I'm not on these fucking apps. I'm not him by any stretch of the imagination. But I am proactively trying to rewire my brain chemistry to not be short-term focused. I'm telling you they're linked.